scrutiny.net.
Now you're welcome back. Plenty going on and off the pitch when it comes to Irish football. Delighted to say we have former Republic of Ireland manager Brian Kerr with us. Evening, Brian.
Good evening, Joe. How you doing?
Yeah, very well. So it's been a long wait for Stephen Kenny. I'd say he's just thrilled to get stuck into this week and get on the training ground and start actually doing the job.
Yeah, it's been a strange time all round, but having been appointed to the role early in the year and expecting maybe to be playing a match in a few weeks' time back in the March period, I'm sure it's been quite frustrating for him, and also the fact he hasn't been able to go and watch the players live. Obviously, been unable to travel. He would have to depend on what he was able to see on, whatever scouting system they use for watching games and TV, and his memory of when he was going to watch players to assess them for the 21s. So that's all a little bit awkward, because there's nothing better than going to watch players live and make your own mind up about them, Joe. But look, at last, I'm sure he's delighted to be up and running and out on the training pitch for the last couple of days with the players.
There must be certain points in international management where you're watching tape after tape and performance after performance and player after player, and you're thinking to yourself, Jesus, is any of this of any real benefit past a certain point? Am I just waiting for the next get-together to come?
Well, usually the live matches would keep you going, Joe. You'd be watching tapes of the opposition more, of the next team you're going to play, or the team after that, or maybe two matches down the line. But you're mostly going to see players live in the club matches, and but I was no doubt that in this situation, Stephen and Damien Duff and Keith Andrews, I know they have been watching a lot of matches, a lot of tapes. I would say of the last few Irish games, and obviously the teams that we've got to play over the next period of time, the busy period that's to come up with the matches now with Bulgaria and Finland and the big game with Slovakia, obviously the potential match with the next match in the playoff, whatever it is, whether it's the third place or the playoff. So all those teams, Wales, then have to be assessed also. So I'm sure that's what they've been doing. But I have no doubt that they had frustrations about not being able to go and watch the players live.
So he's had a training session yesterday. They've trained today before flying out, and presumably they'll train at the stadium tomorrow. We have to be realistic here. There's been so much talk about what Stephen Kenny is going to bring to Irish football and the type of football that we might hopefully see down the line. Realistically, working with players at this level, what can you hope to achieve as a manager in probably 180 minutes on the training ground with them?
Well, I mean, again, I know that Stephen has spoken to the players in this sort of methodology, Zoom calls with players, going back to when he was first installed in the job. I think that was one of the first things he did. He contacted all the players and spoke to them directly. So I'm sure he's already given them a fair picture of how he wants to go about it, of his approach, of the style that he wants to play. And I would imagine that over the long period of time he's probably had repeated phone calls with some of them and discussions with them about the role, and maybe some assessment of how they've been playing when we did get football, when football eventually got going again and the season was finished up, the English League season and the Championship season was finished up. That would have allowed them to assess how the players were playing and maybe have further discussions. I don't know for certain that this has happened, but I'd imagine that this is what's happened. And now that they're in to have the group together, he would have, I think I saw reports that he had outlined to them in the meeting of how he wanted to go about it. And then they went out on the training pitch and have had a couple of training sessions. Those sessions are very important. I heard a report yesterday that there were 2 hours on the training pitch. And the time can easily drift away when you have a lot of information to impart in the first training session or two. you might want to stay on longer and get a bit more in and use up the time, you know, to make the best impact possible. Because I know that Stephen was concerned that he was only going to have really 2 good sessions with the players before the game, the first game. Or at least that's what he thought. I don't know whether it's worked out any better because of the time scale of the matches, where he's actually getting another session in. Probably will get a session in Bulgaria tomorrow, won't he? Before the game, so that'd be 3. But you've got to make the best of them. But you know, all the things you do, Joe, you have to take account that the opposition are doing the same, and they'll have a way of playing, and they'll want to impose their way of playing on Ireland. Now, Bulgaria haven't been in very good nick. The game here last year, they were absolutely desperate. It was more or less our second team played in the match, and we won 3-1. And it was a dreadful friendly international. One of the types of friendly internationals that makes us kind of feel some joy about the Nations League format, because that was an awful match. And we covered a match with Virgin when they played England. They were beaten 6-0 on that horrendous night when the black players were abused. And the referee, it seemed like he was going to stop the game a couple of times because of the racial abuse of some of the English players. But as a football team, as an international team, they were very uncompetitive.
They were. It was the night, to jog people's memories, it was the night Jack Byrne came on and made a bit of an impact and at least gave the night a sense of something. But otherwise, it was fairly bare stuff.
In the game here, the game here, we got 3 late-ish enough goals, and they got a late penalty. Eliaf, the captain, scored, and I think he's gone now. He's changed, and the manager's changed, I think, also. But, you know, they want to play in their way, and we want to play. And obviously, Stephen has talked about the style. He's talked a lot about how he wants to impose the style. I think I'd say, Joe, is, you know, it's as if a lot of the journalists have forgotten about the fact that we did often play a lot of good football over the years. It wouldn't be new for an Irish team to play good football and to try and play on the front foot. Irish teams have always tried to play in the front foot within reason. In recent years, we may not have had the quality of players. And when the matches started, I don't think Martin O'Neill's intention was to end up sitting back in the games against Wales and Denmark in that group, in that qualification group, when we had very little of the ball. I think his intention, both him and Roy, would have been that we'd have been dominating possession. But we didn't, because the opposition had decent players and they were able to control the game. And, you know, I'm sure Stephen has looked at those games, looked at the Denmark game, the last game with Mick, and where Delaney and Sean, Delaney got hurt early on, Højbjerg came on, and how they dominated the game from there. And I'm sure, you know, the new plan will be to play a lot higher, not allow the centre-backs to get on the ball and control possession in the opposition's half. That the intent will be to close them down and chase them and press them and get control of the game and push up the back four, where what we've had, you know, for the last good while, it'd be Shane Duffy and John Egan, and if we play the third centre-back, sitting back close to our own penalty area, and our midfield sitting back fairly close to them as well, and then the front players in our own half. Stephen's intention will obviously be, that'll be the other way. We'll be wanting to be up the pitch and forcing the opposition and getting our defenders, our back four, as I think Stephen will play, a back four, within, you know, 10, 15, 20 yards of the halfway line, and that we'll be playing the other half. That'll be the intention. And I think we can do that against Bulgaria. And we probably should be able to do it against Finland. Finland have qualified for the Euros, show. I think they got 16 goals in the group, finished second to Italy, lost the 2 matches to Italy. The goals were, Pukki got 10 goals for them. They wouldn't be a great team. They haven't got significant players playing at significant clubs. But they're an effective unit and play on the counter-attack. And it's been remarkable that they've qualified the first time that they've qualified, helped by the fact that it's 24 teams and all that. They've never qualified before. But I think we'll be on the front foot against Finland as well. And then you see where that takes you after that. But every team you play won't allow you to hustle and bustle them off the ball. Some of them will play around you and play through you when you try to close them down and try and pressure them in their own half of the pitch, and they'll expose you when they play through. So, I'm sure there's a plan for that. And Stephen was quite pragmatic when he was at Dundalk as well. It wasn't always gung-ho. I have a picture of the match with AZ Alkmaar in Holland, where in the Netherlands, where Dundalk didn't have a huge amount of the ball. When they had the ball, they used it very well. And then they fell behind in the game. And then they had to go for it late on, and Kieran Kilduff came on and played centre forward, and Noel orthodox centre forward, main man, put a big bloke up the middle, and we knock a ball in the box, and he might get a header on it and score, and he did. Now, so it's not always been, we'll knock her about across the back forward, and our centre halves to dribble out with it, and we'll build her up through the middle, and sometimes it'll be a bit different as well.
If he does go with
just some ideas, Joe, on how it is in international football. You're playing against often the managers of the opposition. They're usually the best bloke they can get. The players are the best players they can get. They will work and prepare. They'll analyse Ireland. They won't have anything to go on against Stephen, because Stephen hasn't managed a team before. They'll be looking at how Mick set up the team over the last few matches, and they might be preparing on the basis of that. So that's good for Stephen. It gives him a chance to surprise them.
Yeah, but I take your point about the quality of the opposition. Often we can analyse ourselves in isolation, and we're not talking about what the other team have done to make our life difficult. Just in terms of, I guess, you're perfectly placed to answer some of these questions, given that you've been there and done it. That first week in charge, or that first period in charge, what were the big adjustments that you had to make when you became manager? Is it suddenly dealing with, your words being on back pages and headline news? Is it, dealing with calibre of player and kind of the short lead-in time into games? Is it all fairly, okay, and I've done this before and it's just different bunch of lads and it's fine? What were your memories of that kind of first meeting or two with the international team?
Well, I had a lot of experience, Joe. I've been doing it with the international teams. I've been with Liam Toohey in the 80s for 5 years with Noel. And then when I'd had various other international squads where I only had short times with colleges teams. So then I had the underage teams for years. So I knew how it worked. You had 2 or 3 days before it, whether it was a small tournament, a mini tournament, or whether it was going to the finals. Going to a finals tournament, you might have a week, and you use that the best you could. So there was nothing particularly strange about it. For me, the problem was that I was only given the job on, I think, the last day of January in 2003, and we had a match 2 weeks later. I think it was a Tuesday that I was announced officially that I had the job, and 2 weeks later, in early February, we had a match away to Scotland. So in that space of time, I had to pick a squad, do all the connections with all the players, and even Jason McAtee, our friend. I contacted each individual player and talked to them all, and went through a similar process to Stephen. And then we went to Scotland, and I only had the players come in on the Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. So I trained on Monday, Tuesday, and we played on Wednesday night against Scotland. So I had to pack a lot into those training sessions. Was there any different? I mean, there was a big one going on around Roy at that time, around Roy Keane, whether Roy was going to come back or not. And I got a phone call during the final training session on the pitch in Hampden on the Tuesday night, during the training session, to tell me that Roy wasn't coming back, that it was being announced on the main 6 o'clock evening news that night. And this was in the middle of the training session when I was doing some tactical work. So it was a little bit of something extra to go on in my brain. So I continued with the session, and I finished up, and then we went into the dressing room. I explained to the players what had happened, and I said, that's it, we walk away now with this as a group. And I got back to the hotel, and there was a media scrum. I don't know if you were there, Joe. No. Waiting for me when I got in the door of the hotel. So I had to do a stand-up version of a press conference with me back against a pillar in the lobby of the hotel, explaining my view of what had happened and what went on. So that was a kind of an interesting start. But then we played the match. So, but you know what I wanted to do, much like Stephen, you want to let the players understand that you're serious, that you're prepared, that you know the game, that you know you're not trying to over-impress them with your knowledge, but you're trying to make them feel this fella knows what he's talking about. And then when you get out on the training ground, when you do some tactical, I mean, I had Chris Houghton with me, I had Noel O'Reilly with me, and they were brilliant coaches, highly respected. The international players didn't know Noel, but they knew Chris, obviously. And they knew some of them were at Spurs. Robbie was at Spurs, Stephen Kerr was at Spurs, Gary Doherty was at Spurs, so some of them knew Chris very well. But there's also a part where I've got to do the tactical work, and I have images in my head about how I want us to walk the ball out from the back. You know, I was manager. We like to play it out in the back too, and walk it out in the back and through the middle and get the front players involved, and show that, and then also show how Scotland would want to play, and how we would deal with that, how we would stop them playing their game, but how could we impose our game? So they're the sort of things you want to do, and you want the players to feel, okay, I know what I have to do, and you want them to understand, but also to use their own intelligence and make decisions themselves, but give them a format and a bit of clarity about the priorities in different areas of the pitch.
Yes, and you mentioned there the media scrum, and that's a slight difference. So suddenly what you say is going to be on the back pages. When you're the Republic of Ireland manager, what you say is news, and that's a bit of a change. Did that extra attention or that bigger platform take some getting used to, or was it okay?
Yeah, again, it was gradual for me because I'd been in the League of Ireland, and you know, St Patrick's Athletic, we always had a decent profile, and there was the regular lads who covered the League of Ireland at that time. And then when I went on to the underage international teams, there was a fair profile on them because we were quite successful, but there wasn't that many people could afford to go to the tournaments we were playing in. There was a limited number of journalists could have went to Malaysia or Nigeria or Sweden, Norway, Cyprus, even Scotland, Iceland, all the places that we played in our finals over the years. So, but there was a reasonable number, but it was a different level altogether with the senior team. It was a different level because after Jack Charlton's era, there was obviously an increase in the numbers, and it wasn't just the sports journalists or the soccer journalists that were covering the national team. It was the colour writers, the feature writers. Everyone was covered in the national team, and that continued through mixed time. And obviously, the whole Japan Saipan incident had brought more attention from everyone was taking notice of what was going on with the national team. So that was all, those people were all still around. So it was big. The numbers were big. It was different. It was more intense. There was a lot more of the press conferences, Joe. Right. And I would hope that, Stephen, that there's better work now in terms of control of that. I think there is. But, certainly I found that they wanted to roll me out every day if I do it. You're right, okay. It was almost like, we need you on every day. And there was no consideration of the work we were doing, the amount of work we were doing every day. That I didn't need the bother of it every day. I didn't need the intensity of the scrutiny and discussion. And sometimes it's very hard to explain to journalists, why you would play a certain player above another player, or why you might think that way. Yeah. Your mind is working a different way. Your mind is kind of, it's your mind at times is a little bit like a very small computer assessing loads of things and making your mind up on it, and it can be hard to explain to other people why you come up with that decision in the end. Well, you might need to protect a player. There's stuff you have to keep private, and as you said, there is an intensity to the scrutiny which is not there in other positions. Exactly, and that's Stephen have to do that. I found in my time the FA gave me very little. They didn't understand that. They wanted to wean me out on a daily basis, and I used to say no. I'd say I'm doing so. Say we have, 5 days, 9 days altogether between the build-up days, the first match, the say the 2 or 3 days between the next match, and I'd end up going, right, I know I have to do the after match one on both days, and I have to do the previous day before the match. That's 4 days, and I'll do 2 other days. You can pick the other 2, but I'm not doing the 9. And that would have became a little bit of a bone of contention. And then getting the players to agree to who appeared was also always a bone of contention. The players never wanted to do it, Joe. And I would have found that it was often me cajoling players and asking them to do the press conference, because they all, for various reasons, had didn't enjoy doing them because they maybe felt there was some criticism about them before, or they just didn't like doing them. And so the people who were asking them in the FAI structure weren't very good at asking them either. So, and there was nothing within the contracts that said they had to do a certain amount. So that was always fraught with a bit. Anyway, Stephen will have it, he'll do it his own way, and but there's a lot more of it, and he'll have to deal with a lot more of it.
Yeah, it's the nature of the job. In about 30 seconds, sorry, I've gone way over time here. In about 30 seconds, is there any team selection on Thursday that you're looking out for in particular, and why?
Well, I think we'll all be looking out for how he handles the Matt Doherty, Seamus Coleman one. I mean, the last match Mick played, the Denmark 1-1, it was Matt Doherty, Shane Duffy, John Egan and Stevens, and Seamus Coleman was suspended. So, what would I do? I had me chance, Joe. I don't know. I think Stephen Kenny is entitled to make his own mind up on these things. He's close to the players. He's been watching those tapes closely. He has his own ideas within his own head of how it has to be played. And I wouldn't try to make that decision for them. I think there's room for both of them in the team. Matt Doherty's the form player. He scored the goal against Denmark. We know he scored the goals. He scored goals for Wolves. He has scored for the last few seasons. And he is the form one for the right back position. But Seamus has been a very steady player for us, although his form hasn't been great in a lot of the recent internationals. He seemed to be back in a bit of form for Everton when the restart got going. He played well in the latter part of the season. That's a big one. The midfield, every area of the pitch, a big one. I heard your little debate early on what Nathan was saying about the training session, and that looked like the 3, and the others looked like the 3. I thought Stephen was going to play 4-2-3-1. So it sounded like the lads are accepting it's going to be 4-3-3. But I think I would think that James McCarthy is going to play. I think Hourihan has a very good chance of playing. After that, I don't know. James McLean was always a favourite of Stephen, going back to his dirty days, so he should play. Who plays centre forward? Would Shane Long get a go ahead of Ada? I don't know. I wouldn't try to guess them, and he's the one that has had to say, like Jeff Hendrick, Nathan said he's a definite to play, but he hasn't played since March. Is he a definite to play? I suppose he is, but not on the form he played in when he played. He didn't play. He hasn't played well enough. He's got to play better than that. He's got to play better than he has done. He's been very uninfluential in so many games. Yeah. But in a new high pressure type of game with clear part of the problem has been obviously players haven't had clear roles. Clearly defined roles in the team. I think the roles are going to be much more defined and clear now, and maybe some of the players who have underperformed will play better within that. They have to.
Hopefully. Brian Kerr, thanks so much.
Thanks, Joe.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. More confident than United before a Europa League final. Gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Back on track with Bobby Kerr.
Back on